Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Martin Indyk. I'm the Vice President and Director of the Foreign Policy Program at the Brookings Institution in Washington. And it's my great pleasure tonight to welcome His Highness Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani, Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of the State of Qatar, Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Secretary General Ihsanoglu of the Organization of the Islamic Conference, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the conveners of the Brookings Project on U.S. Relations with the Islamic World, I want to welcome you to the gala opening of the 9th U.S. Islamic World Forum. We started this forum in the wake of the horrendous terrorist attacks of 9/11. After those attacks, Americans started paying attention to the Muslim world like they never had before, but they looked at it through the prism of jihadist terrorism. At the same time, Muslims around the world started looking at the United States through the prism of its reaction to those horrendous events, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, Guantanamo prison, the difficulties they had to travel to the United States, and in the process a vast gulf opened up between Muslim and Arab governments and people on the one side and the United States government and the American people on the other. It was at that stage the Brookings Institution decided that it was necessary to start a dialogue to try to bridge that gulf. I remember 10 years ago talking to Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim in Washington about this idea, and he immediately said, you should do a conference, you should do it here in Doha. And that was 10 years ago. It was his vision and his commitment that has led to this annual forum. Bridging the divide was a Herculean task. It started with overcoming ignorance, breaking down stereotypes, opening minds, and listening, above all, listening with respect to the views of others. And that's what we've been doing over these last 9 years. There were times when no one else was talking to each other, but we persevered. And we chose from the beginning, on the one hand, to have a narrow focus on the United States, and on the other, to have a very broad focus on the Muslim world, not just the Arab world. And that is manifested tonight, as it has in previous forums, with the presence of over 50 Muslim majority countries represented here. We sought to make it a societal dialogue involving high-level officials, politicians, faith leaders, academics, intellectuals, educators, private sector entrepreneurs, artists, writers, filmmakers, actors, even a rock star and a comedian. And we struggled to come up with meaningful cooperative initiatives in education, science and technology, culture and interfaith dialogue. Along the way, a few years ago, the Organization of the Islamic Conference, under the leadership of its Secretary General, who is with us tonight, joined us in a very fruitful partnership that manifests itself in our annual forum. I think it's fair to say that we made steady progress along the way. And then, starting in Tunisia and Egypt, some 18 months ago, our whole world changed. Revolutions that started in Tunisia and Egypt spread across the Arab world. Autocratic leaders in Libya and Yemen have been removed from power. And then the focus has shifted to Syria, where our heroic people are battling against a brutal regime that clearly will stop at nothing, including the murder in cold blood of women and children, until the regime is stopped and removed. And so as a result, our conversation has now changed dramatically. It's no longer between victim and supposed victimizer. A leading segment of the Muslim people have redeemed their dignity by themselves and for themselves, and the conversation is now between free people about how to answer the needs of their people through building democratic, representative, accountable, transparent government institutions, and how the United States, at all levels of society, can help in this process. This is not just refreshing, it is inspirational. First in Washington last year, and now in Doha, our forum has entered a new and exciting phase, one that holds out great promise for that original goal of bridging the divide. None of this would have been possible, as I said at the outset, without the vision and support and steadfast friendship of Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani. And it's a great honor for us to have him present tonight and for him to address us. He is, of course, the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of the State of Qatar. He has had a distinguished public service career, first in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Agriculture, as Chairman of the Qatar Electricity and Water Company, President of the Central Municipal Council, Director of the Special Emiri Projects Office, rising to be member of the Supreme Defense Council, head of Qatar's Permanent Committee for the Support of Al-Quds, member of the Permanent Constitution Committee, member of the Ruling Family Council, and what I suspect is the best job, member of the Supreme Council for the Investment of the Reserves of the State. But on a personal note, I have to say how very proud I am of the friendship that he has shown me and the Brookings Institution. Because Sheikh Hamad, in the midst of the tumultuous developments of the last 2 years, has risen to a leadership position, not just in this country, but for the Arab world. And his leadership at critical moments, whether it was to remove the tyrant in Libya or now to work to remove the tyrant in Syria, whether it's to promote peace between Israelis and Palestinians, or whether it's to promote greater unity in the Arab world, Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim has proved himself to be not just a leader, but a great statesman. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. At the beginning, I would like to extend my condolences to the fire that took place yesterday, and we wish them that they will be granted paradise, and we wish their families all the best. I had a written note, but I would prefer to ad lib, because I would like to talk about a number of issues. Please, I apologize to the interpreters because it would have been more, easier for them to read the speech than to translate what I'm going to say now. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, Your Excellency, the Minister of Bangladesh, Your Excellency Ehsan Oglu, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Doha. When we started with the idea, as Martin, my colleague, my friend, has said, the idea of the forum emanated from the September the 11th event that greatly impacted the Islamo-Arab relationships. And there is a kind of success in their work, because this has led, we can call it a kind of success, because they were able to create a gap between the Islamic world and the United States. This issue has rattled the world, and it's still rattling the relationship between the United States and the Arab world, irrespective of the efforts that have been made by both parts to bridge the gap between the Arab world and the United States. As you know, that there are direct and indirect reasons for such kind of bridge, such kind of gap. So there are things because of the United States, and there are reasons due to the Arab world. So there is great disparity between the two worlds, between the Western world and the Islamic world. And at the same time, this disparity is in the interest of certain entities that aim to do things that I do not want to go into in detail, but I would like to say, what are the reasons that has been used by the other side, by the other party, in order to increase the disparity between the Western entity and the Islamic world? The main reason is the Palestinian cause. We know the Arab world and the Israeli states rely on the American mediator in this cause, and they hope that American mediation will play a role in solving this issue in a fair and just manner for both parties. Qatar, since the Madrid conference and the agreements that have been reached in that conference, was very serious, and it is still serious in the peace process. That is why they have advanced in many steps in order to bridge the gap between both Israel and the Arab world. As you know, there was an Israeli office here in the state of Qatar. There were communications that were declared between ourselves and Israel, and the aim of such kind of communication was to achieve peace in favor of the region and stability. And based on that, we had to accept, the blame for certain from certain Arab states. And the main issue, the main problem, was in understanding what is required of both parties, be it the Israelis or the Palestinians. The Israelis, they talk about security, and they talk about Arab-Israeli relationships, naturalization of relationships, and normalization, of relationships. The Palestinian state talks about legitimate right, which is the 67 borders, a Palestinian state, the return of refugees, Jerusalem, Al-Quds as a capital for both states. So as you know, the 67 borders separates between the eastern Jerusalem and western Jerusalem. Throughout all those years, we knew what has taken place in this file. And we had ups and downs throughout those years in how to reach a peaceful solution to this cause. So the Arab and Palestinian option is a peaceful option, and that was very clear in the Arab conferences and Islamic conferences that were held. Our problem, because of the many administrations and governments that we had in Israel, one day we have one government, they call it a government that is weak, that cannot approach peace, and another day we have another government that they say is a strong government and does not need to have peace, that is strong enough internally. This issue, and among other issues, Arab and Islamic issues, has created disparity between the West and Islam. And we have to recognize from that point, doubts have started. These doubts have been escalated and increased in recent years, and we have noticed and witnessed that we have seen frustration in the Arab world from a number of leaders in the Arab world. Those leaders who did not say a fair word, or did not change their position with regard to this cause, or did not endeavor strongly enough with all their weight in order to move the peace process forward. And now all what we have is a peace track, but with no peace. So we wanted this peace track with the Islamic world and the Arab world. What was important for them is to have this track, to have conferences, press conferences, one conference after the other. And those who are harmed should wait forever in this issue. So they just wanted to have a peace process with no peace. So this issue and what has taken place in Gaza, and the blockade and the suffering in Gaza, has exploded what we call and led to the Arab Spring, what we call the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring is a result of a number of reasons. This is the main reason. And the second reason is there is unemployment, there is a lack of interest in number of issues in those Arab countries, and many presidents wanted to inherit their authorities to their own children. So this is the Arab Spring. The Arab people in that Arab Spring wanted transparency, wanted justice, wanted the restoration of their rights, who are not pleased with the way most leaders deal with them, especially with the Palestinian cause. Please allow me to say that. They were not pleased with how their leaders handled the Palestinian cause. They felt that their leaders colluded with a number of parties against the Palestinian cause. And so we had this phenomenon which has many reasons, and we have seen change taking place starting from Tunisia up to Syria now. This change needs to be sponsored, adopted, and needs to be respected. We have to respect the choices of the people. No leader should reign against the will of his people. And those people have broken the barrier of fear in the Arab Spring. And based on that, we ask the question, what is required now in order to show the goodwill in those two causes between the Arab countries the Islamic countries, sorry, and the United States. And how can we support these countries? I do not mean military support. I mean support in the development of societies, in education, and we should put aside the idea that says that whoever is an Islamist is an enemy. We should here recall the experience of Turkey. When the government of Turkey came into power, many people were, felt afraid, felt concerned, but their experience has proven successful, and it has become a model in the Arab world. So let's put aside who is going to lead the Arab countries and who is not going to lead those Arab countries, because we have experienced, and you have experienced, when you support the leaders, they try to compliment their people, to give them compliments, but this does not lead to the required solutions. They do what they want, what their people want in the short terms, but their policies were not successful internationally. And when we talk about international relations, we talk about relations between states and states, countries and countries. We do not have any animosities between ourselves and the United States, and there shouldn't be any animosity between ourselves and the United States. The United States has supported many countries for freedom at the beginning of the United States. The United States has a great role during the First World War, but since the United States leads the world in a way or another, it has to have a role, to have a fair role in solving these causes and issues. And a fair role and a just role should be fair. So, the nature of humanity is that we try to be sometimes, in favor of one party at the expense of the other. But the United States should concentrate on its interests, because if we concentrate on the interests of the United States, if the United States concentrates on its interests, and the Arab world concentrates and the Islamic world concentrates on its interests, that would be our common interest together. And on that basis, we should not choose for the people what we want, but we have to support them for what they choose. We have to support them for they choose, as long as they accept and respect international laws, and they respect not interfere in other states' affairs. And at the same time, we have to try to confront violence and terrorism, and we have to agree on something that would be common between us: what is terrorism and what is the paradigm that we're going to adopt in confronting terrorism. And we have to specify what is terrorism. Is whoever is calling for his rights, is he a terrorism? Are people who are suppressed, are they terrorists? So, and in the United Nations laws, there is a right of self-defense. And here I would like to go to my last point, and I apologize for taking too long. I do not want to give you a lecture, but I just want to exchange with you a number of ideas here. I go back to what is taking place in Syria. We know who is supporting Syria, but we know that the West can do something, or can do more in this respect. The Syrian people, the latest tragedy is what has taken place in Al-Hula. And today, we have got 56 people killed, including 6 children. We have supported the mission of Kofi Annan, but how long is it going to continue? The mission of Kofi Annan has 6 points. His plan includes 6 points, but up to now, not even 1 point has been implemented. For us to have hope and to continue, we do not want to interfere in the internal affairs of Syria, and we only wish the best for Syria, and nobody can say can say anything about the relationship between Syria and Qatar, because you all know that the relationship between the two states was, very good, very close. But the Qatar leadership, represented by His Highness the Emir, has chosen the Syrian people, and to say that they are with the Syrian people.
And for this reason, there should be Islamic-Arab cooperation with the West, also with the United States, to deal with this issue, to solve it peacefully but decisively. We are not warmongers. We do not call for intervention, but we are not also with the situation remaining as it is, because this situation leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of Arab people, Syrian people, in dealing with one issue differently than other issues. When there is selectiveness and they're not dealt with all at the same level, there becomes an ethical issue, a moral issue here that should be dealt with. This subject, we have come up with initiative after initiative at the Arab level, and we need the cooperation, and America can prove that. America had a stance vis-a-vis the Muslims in Bosnia. This was a positive stance, and America should be thanked for it. But we ask of America always, because it is the superpower, the great power, to deal on the basis of justice in all issues, whether it's the Palestinian issue or the Syrian issue or other issues, especially to do with the North-South relations, and in Africa and other areas in the world where there is such a need. We appreciate the fact that the economic situation in the world is not as we desire it to be. But we also know that if the situation deteriorates in Syria, it will adversely impact the world economy and world issues. And we know that we in the Arab and Muslim world should deal positively with this, and we are convinced that the common shared grounds between us and the United States are far more than the points of difference, though painful they might be. But we need to talk about them frankly, because now we are living in an age where niceties are not of any benefits. We say to the Israeli people, the countries around you are changing, the Arab world is changing, the political game is changing, and you no longer have the friends you had before. So therefore you should think of a serious peace process which returns the rights to their people. I wish your forum all the success it deserves, and I hope that cooperation continues, and we hope that all our exchanges will be frank and up to the responsibilities, so that we can achieve positive results. Thank you very much, and sorry if I've taken too much of your time.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Hamad. I must say, ladies and gentlemen, that in 9 years that Sheikh Hamad has been coming to address us, he's never been unplugged like that, which he did not present a prepared speech. And so we had a special treat tonight of him speaking frankly and from his heart, and we deeply appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Our next keynote speaker this evening is Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, and we're very honored to have her grace our podium this evening. She has a distinguished political career. She, of course, comes from a distinguished political family. Her father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, was the first president of Bangladesh. She became president of the Bangladesh Awami League party in 1981, became leader of the opposition in 1986, and in the 1996 parliamentary elections, her party won the majority and she became Prime Minister, serving in her first term from 1996 to 2001. Again, in late 2008, Sheikh Hasina was sworn in for the second time as Prime Minister of Bangladesh. She's won numerous awards, notably the UNESCO Peace Prize and the All India Peace Council's Mother Teresa Award. She is the author of several books, including one on people and democracy and development for the masses. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister of Bangladesh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency Prime Minister Hamad bin Jassim bin Jabbar Al Thani, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening to you all. I thank you, Honorable Prime Minister and Brookings Institute, for inviting me to speak at the Gala Dinner of this year's U.S. Islamic World Forum. I also thank the organizers for the impeccable arrangements made for selecting this forum's theme, New Voices, New Directions, emphasizing the challenge of change. Before I start, at the outset, I wish to express my deepest condolences to all the families who have lost their near and dear ones in yesterday's tragic fire at the Villaggio shopping mall in Doha City. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the recent socio-political developments across the continents have given way to changes in political landscape and emergence of new leadership in some countries. These changes have opened the way to new challenges, giving birth to a new political vision and promotion of sustainable democracy. The theme, therefore, for this year's forum seems most appropriate to enable discussions on these and other challenges of change in our world and in our way of life, even within our own regions. Indeed, change is a constant but inevitable process. Today, the change around us is noticeable due to the fast pace of globalization and the instant dissemination of information around the world. Although change is posing new challenges to nations in different ways, it is also drawing our world closer. After half a century in politics for people, I now believe that justice is the key to peace, and peaceful change is best for societies, states, and the world. Societies thrive in peace when justice ensures the basic needs of the people. Similarly, states thrive when relations are based on justice and peace. I also believe that absence of justice leads to inequalities culminating in social turmoil, instability in society, states, and in regions. It has therefore been for justice a basic tenet and character of democracy in all spheres of life that led to the birth of Bangladesh and adoption of a constitution that ensured democracy, inclusiveness, and human rights. Democracy also respects freedom and harmonious living and encourages sustainable development which strengthen justice and empower people. With deep faith in these beliefs, I introduced a resolution on people's empowerment that was adopted by the 66th UNGA in New York last year. Thus, on assuming office in January 2009, I made efforts to entrench democracy and people's empowerment by strengthening our commissions on human rights, information, anti-corruption, and election. The Election Commission updated the voters list, prepared voters' identity cards, and introduced electronic voting machines for fair and credible elections. So far, 5,175 elections were held under our government, stretching from local government level elections to that of mayors and by-elections of MPs to the satisfaction of all political parties, a unique feature in the history of our elections. I would now like to share the experience of our journey to democracy, rule of law, and social justice. For social justice, our focus is on education, healthcare, food, energy security, social safety measures, better livelihood, and gender equality in all spheres of life. Women are particularly assured of special support in education, healthcare, jobs, business, trade, and entrepreneurship. Our ethnic minorities, the disadvantaged and disabled, and the elderly also receive the attention they deserve as citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, a major challenge of change in our region is poverty, which I believe is our #1 common enemy. It provides breeding ground for another challenge in our changing world, and that is terrorism. Since there know no borders, concerted efforts of all states are required to face them. The remedy is to prosper, for which connectivity allowing increasing trade, investment, and economic activities is very important. Our excellent relations with the neighbors, based on mutual respect, reciprocity, and justice, have helped us all make good progress in developing connectivity in South Asia. Our regional cooperation against terrorism is also excellent. As a victim myself, losing 18 family members, including my 3 brothers, one only 10 years old, my mother, my father, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, also the father of the nation, to assassins on 15th August 1975. I am against terrorism. My resolve is cemented by the 19 attempts and especially a 13-grenade attack on me on 21st August 2004 at a public rally held in protest against terrorism, causing death of 24 people with hundreds injured. My effort to eliminate terrorism from Bangladesh has been fully endorsed and supported by our good friends around the world. Our friends are also supporting our efforts in tackling the challenges of development. Despite the recent world recession, we managed GDP growth rate in the last 3 years of over 6% and also reduced poverty by 10% through education, healthcare, social safety nets, and overall socio-economic development. In education, we achieved 99% school enrollment at the primary level and gender equality at both primary and secondary levels. Healthcare services is delivered through 11,800 community health centers in the rural areas. Our success in reducing maternal mortality was lauded by the UN, and in child mortality was rewarded by the UN ldquo award in 2010. Our social safety nets include increasing pension and number of old people, widowed, and distressed women, homes for the homeless, one home, one farm for small landowners, employment of one member from every poor family, etc. Food security is a success story with steady delivery of fertilizers, seeds, agriculture information, salinity, drought, and flood resistance rice varieties, etc. Climate change challenges are being made by a 134-point adaptation and mitigation plan, which includes dredging of rivers, afforestation 20% of land to create a carbon sink, improving disaster early warning system, green belts on coastal and river embankments, promoting renewable energy, etc. A major challenge of climate change is disaster-induced migrants. Climate change is not our doing, but of developed and emerging economies. The problem should, therefore, be solved by relocating the migrants to their countries. This would also meet developed economies' challenge of decreasing population and labor shortage, which are adversely affecting our economic growth. At present, we are meeting these challenges through our own climate change trust fund, as well as through climate change resilience fund set up by our development partners. Our internet services connecting 4,501 union information and service centers, 483 upazilas, and the 64 districts, 30 million internet and 90 million mobile subscribers are boosting our progress. Excellencies, in our globalized world, boundaries lose significance to greenhouse gas emissions, economic migration, terrorism, etc. Least developed countries like Bangladesh need support of resourceful and developed countries in tackling these problems. Indeed, the challenge of climate change, population increase, fresh water shortage, etc. calls for a universal united effort in facing them and other challenges of change. Thanks to the State of Qatar and the Brookings Institute for the U.S. Islamic World Forum, providing a scope to share views and to formulate future national and global strategies. The world, particularly the developed, has realized that a relationship with Islamic world based on justice is vital. And spiritual understanding of the distinct code of life and culture of the 1.5 billion Muslims is essential for real peace and actual stability. Dialogue, investment, trade concessions, and support to the Islamic world are therefore very fruitful efforts. Bangladesh is fortunate to attract attention, possibly due to our secular, inclusive society of people of mixed ethnicities who are also nonviolent in nature. Though 90% of our 160 million people are Muslims, we are exceptionally tolerant and are all embracing a nature and temperament. Our foreign policy dictum is friendship towards all, malice towards none, as established by the father of the nation, and our national psyche is live and let live. Thus, follows of all regions in our country have found harmony and peace in living together. In this respect, Bangladesh is similar to the United States, and this is the basis of our two countries' friendship. Bangladesh is included in all the 4 initiatives of President Obama, namely on the health, climate change, feed the future, and engagement with the Muslim world. The United States is also our strong partner in democracy, rule of law, women empowerment, education, social safety nets, and countering terrorism. There is no doubt that the United States and Islamic and entire world has understood the need to live together and face united the new and deadly challenges of change, threatening our global village. In these ever-evolving arrangements, there will be difficulties and complexities calling for greater tolerance, understanding, cooperation, and adjustment. Here I want to mention about the Palestinian problem. I hope that all Islamic world and also United States and other developed countries should take initiative to resolve this problem. Once the Palestinian problem is solved, I hope that all efforts will give some fruit. So this is my humble request to resolve this problem as soon as possible. All of us will need to open our minds and hearts in assessing the needs of others and be willing to compromise and make sacrifice on the basis of justice and fairness, and thereby achieve a world of peace, harmony for our future generation. I thank you all for your kind hearing. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Hasina. It's now my pleasure to welcome to the podium somebody who is no stranger to most of us, because as I said in my opening remarks, he and the organization he leads has served as a partner with us in this dialogue between the United States and the Islamic world. Ekmeleddin Ihsanoglu is the Secretary General of the Organization of the Islamic Conference. He has been with the OIC since 1980, first as its founding Director General of its Research Center for Islamic History, Culture and the Arts. He has a distinguished academic career as the founding head of the Department of History of Science at Istanbul University, as well as the founding chairman of the Turkish Society for the History of Science. In that capacity, he's written numerous books, articles and papers on the history of science, Islamic culture, Turkish culture, and relations between the Muslim world and the West. He has been an outstanding leader of the Organization of the Islamic Conference, and the OIC, under his leadership, has taken a prominent role in trying to promote relations between the West and the Muslim world. And we are very grateful for that leadership role that he has played. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary General of the OIC, Ekmeleddin Ihsanoglu.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Highness, Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani, Prime Minister and former Minister of the State of Qatar, Your Excellency Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Your Excellencies, Your Eminences, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to address this distinguished audience of policymakers, academicians, and opinion shapers at the Islamic World Forum, U.S. Islamic World Forum, convened by the Brookings in partnership with the State of Qatar. At the outset, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the Emir of the State of Qatar, and Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim, Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of the State of Qatar. I would like also to express my thanks and appreciation to the Brookings Institution and Saban Center for organizing this important annual event. I am particularly pleased that as a Secretary General of OIC, I bring the voice of the 57 member states who happen to form the world's second largest international intergovernmental body that I have the honor to lead. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the privilege of addressing this forum last April in Washington, D.C., and remarked that United States-Muslim world relations were witnessing historic developments. Today, there are even more profound and critical changes that are taking place, and more are yet to come in different parts of the Muslim world. However, there is a tendency to refer to these events as an Arab Spring, and I think this is a wrong term. Arab Spring is an incorrect definition which narrows our understanding of what is currently taking place. Spring is a short period, one of the 4 seasons, and what happened, and what is going on will take more than 1 season. I would say these events reflect more an autumn for dictators. Yet the experience of each country in the Muslim world has been distinct. In some countries, the military defected from the regime, while in others, a part or all of the military has stayed loyal to the incumbent leadership. And in yet others, it filled the void left by a departing dictator. In some places, opposition have succeeded in liberating parts of cities or parts of the current country, creating further rifts. We should remember that these movements have been building up over time and occurring across regions and continents. It was in April 2010 when people of the Central Asian Republic of Kyrgyzstan took to the streets in mass demonstrations to demand their rights and call for an end to corruption, injustice, and despotism. 8 months later, sparked by the death of Tunisian vegetable vendor from a small town who put himself to fire and lost his life because he couldn't earn his daily few dinars to look after his family, the people of Tunisia launched their own revolution. We in the OIC congratulated the brave people of Tunisia who opened up new horizons for freedom, justice, democracy, and good governance with their Jasmine Revolution. They inspired changes not only in their country, but changed the course of history for everyone in the Middle East. Then, as the world watched the people of Egypt demonstrated in Tahrir Square to demand change and reform, democracy and accountability, justice and free choice. There were scenes of protest and confrontation, filled with emotion and regretfully some violence too. Now, just a few days ago, on May 24th, the same Egyptian people waited peacefully for hours in long lines outside polling stations across Egypt to cast their votes. This occurred after lively public debate and political campaigns, which openly and actively courted the voters. Indeed, today, we see a variety of political parties vying for the chance to lead, Some we have liked, while some others we may not. But if anything, the movements of the last year have shown the continued importance of open debate and free discussion in the public sphere. Those countries that have higher degrees of political freedoms benefit from the public debate and the negotiation of new ways of governing, leading to political stability, and will serve as role models for others. While it will take time for democratic forms and governments to evolve, it's clear that autocracy and authoritarian regimes have been rejected, and people seek the right to choose and change their leadership by peaceful means. Truly, greater participation by the people will bring greater security for the region. Democracies will not be swift to launch conflicts or wars against others. Ultimately, the greatest challenge facing the new governments in the Arab and Muslim world is to bring about political stability and build a civil society based on human rights and social injustice, while ensuring the right to livelihood and provision of economic growth and basic sustenance for their citizens, so essential for human dignity. With the current instability in the global economy, the real challenge facing the new leaders and governments will be meeting the unmet needs and expectations of their own citizens. For example, according to recent IMF report, countries such as Egypt, Morocco, Lebanon, and others averaged 12% unemployment over the last decade, which is double the global average of 6.3%. And the rate for youth unemployment exceeds 50%, which is dangerous and unacceptable. Your Highness, Excellencies, Eminencies, ladies and gentlemen, the ongoing political and ensuing economic crisis in the Middle East and North Africa regions have engaged the OIC in vigorous efforts to bring about political stability by promoting good governance, democracy, rule of law, human rights, and tolerance. Guided by the new charter, the OIC new charter, and the 10-year program of action adopted in 2005, the OIC has given special attention to inclusive dialogue in the context of making peace and political stability in many nations, including Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, Libya, Syria, and Mali, in addition to its long-standing engagement in countries such as Afghanistan and Somalia. We have been following these transformative events from the earliest days. In Libya, for example, we condemned the systematic attacks against civilians, and we were amongst the first, perhaps the first, intergovernmental organization to insist on the need to work out a political solution that would involve a clear transitional political process that will reflect the legitimate aspirations of the Libyan people. We welcomed the Security Resolution 1970 and 1973, and we were part of all contact group meetings and international forums on Libya. Now, the OIC is working with the National Transitional Council to support their programs for the benefit of democracy and the rule of law. In Syria, the OIC was involved from the very early stages. I sent a special envoy to President Bashar al-Assad with a personal letter in the beginning of May last year, expressing deep concern at the violence taking place. I reiterated my stance that stability in Syria is important and crucial for the whole region, and I called on him to commence dialogue with the national opposition to reach a cessation of all hostilities from both sides. I also explained that the winds of change were sweeping the region, and that the issues of human rights and legitimate aspiration of the people have become the leading values of this age, and they have to be accepted with positive dialogue. We have continued to urge the Syrian authorities to cease from resorting to the use of force against civilians and to comply with the obligations laid down in the OIC and UN charters in order to avert the risk of foreign intervention. In addition, we have worked jointly with the United Nations to successfully dispatch a humanitarian mission, including a convoy of trucks carrying relief products to the people in various regions. Ladies and gentlemen, a great deal of the efforts of OIC is directed toward humanitarian and human development programs in its member states through concrete and practical programs, including poverty alleviation, education, science and technology, and empowering women. On many of these issues, we have developed strategic partnerships and close cooperation with the United States. We have, for example, launched joint programs to eradicate polio and promote maternal and child health in Mali and Bangladesh. Just 2 months ago, I visited Washington, D.C., and I met with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to share our views on the developments in the region, and also signed a memorandum of cooperation between the OIC and USAID that will strengthen our work in the humanitarian field. This will bring together the aid delivery and distribution networks while ensuring better coordination on the ground in critical areas of need around the world. In these days, the OIC and the United States have developed strong and effective partnership which can be traced back to the earliest days of the Obama administration. In fact, with President Barack Obama, when President Obama was elected to the office of the President of the United States, many people across the world hoped for a new positive direction in United States-Islamic world relations. I also wished to share with him my views on this subject as Secretary General of the OIC, and I wrote to him an open letter which was published in the New York Times on January 21, 2009, the day President Obama assumed office. My letter was an invitation to a new partnership for the United States and the Islamic world based on mutual respect and mutual interest, as well as a reflection of the aspirations of the Muslim world from the new United States administration. A few months later, I was officially invited to Cairo for the historic speech delivered by President Obama, and I was delighted to hear his call for the Islamic world and the United States to work together in new partnership to achieve justice and prosperity for all people based on mutual respect and mutual interest. His speech became a landmark address widely praised throughout the Muslim world and beyond. Let me give you one example of United States OIC cooperation that is important to underscore, which is the joint effort, which is this example is about the joint effort to combat intolerance, discrimination, and incitement to violence based on religion or belief. For more than a decade, the OIC had been successful in adoption of a resolution on defamation of religions at the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva and the United Nations General Assembly. After being universally accepted in the initial years, the resolution began to receive opposition from certain quarters who perceived it to be Islam-centric and to be designed to restrict freedom of speech. We noted that certain interest groups were active in giving a wrong twist to the spirit of the resolution by wiping fears and doubts among the common people that the OIC resolution went against universal values. These accusations were incorrect, inaccurate. I would like to reiterate here that our objective in tabling the resolution was to combat intolerance based on religion and faith and to find a working mechanism so that freedom of speech, to which we all are committed, is not abused to incite hatred and intolerance, including violence. The OIC continued to remain engaged with the United States and others in Europe to reach a common ground that would meet the concerns of both sides and to take a common position that would help in combating interfaith intolerance. Then, in my address to the 15th session of United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva in September 2010, I proposed 8 points that I believed would contribute in a positive manner in combating intolerance, hatred, racial discrimination based on religion and faith, and leading to a common path in understanding the issue through dialogue, mutual respect, and understanding. I was happy to see that my proposals were welcomed by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and became the basis of the historical consensual adoption of United Nations Human Rights Council Resolution 1618 in Geneva last year, under the title Combating Intolerance, Negative Stereotyping, and Stigmatization of and Discrimination of Incitement to Violence and Violence Against Persons based on Religion and Belief. This resolution was a landmark event as it proved that the international community was united in combating intolerance and bigotry among peoples of diverse populations. Secretary Clinton and I took the initiative last July to launch the Istanbul process. We were joined by the foreign ministers of OIC and European countries, including Baroness Catherine Ashton of European Union and representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. The relevance of 1618 was upheld by international community when it was adopted by United Nations General Assembly Resolution 16/167 last year, and again by the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva in the 19th session held March this year. It is now for us to truly devote ourselves to implement the resolution in its letter and spirit. We must now allow ourselves not to be coerced by the extremist elements who are doing their best to distort it and motivate public opinion against it. There is no alternative to dialogue and developing understanding among cultures and religions in our present day today. The culture of peace that we seek has to be an enduring process. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are looking for the future, we are recognizing that the landscape of the Muslim world has changed completely since President Obama entered office, and indeed even since the last time this forum convened in Washington last April. The people have awakened and their voices have risen in this region, and their views must be respected. For the first time, citizens in these countries are truly participating in changing their societies and selecting their leaders. This new dynamic must be respected and not feared in apprehension for the rise of this or that party or group. However, we should also remember that while many nations across the region are celebrating the opportunity to have real change in their societies, one people are still waiting for their true freedom and justice: the Palestinians. This situation cannot continue indefinitely. We in the OIC believe that the only solution to the conflict in the Middle East must be achieved on the basis of the international terms of reference, the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, the Madrid Principles, the American Roadmap, the Arab Peace Initiative. While the Middle East revolutions are sweeping away the status quo, this is the right time for the United States to cooperate and engage in a flexible and multilateral manner. The basis of United States-Islamic world relations must deal with this challenge of raised expectations of so many in the Muslim world. Now, in this American presidential election year, the world is watching to see if the United States will fulfill its promises and act as the main interlocutor who has the trust of all parties to ensure the peace will fully and finally be achieved for the Palestinian people. In closing, I would like to wish you all successful deliberations, and may your discussions and recommendations bring further understanding of the nature of relations between the United States and the Islamic world, and how that can be constantly improved and nurtured for a better and more peaceful world. I thank you for your kind attention, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for your inspired leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have dinner now, and after dinner we'll have a very special panel discussion with Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayer from Saudi Arabia, the Nobel Peace Laureate Tawakkol Karman from Yemen, and Saab Erekat, the chief negotiator for the Palestine Liberation Organization. Please enjoy your dinner.